Hello, I'm Katherine G. McCrae, and you're watching Perspective. My guest today is Sara McCleary, Ward 4 candidate for Sault Ste. Marie. She's also a reporter and community advocate. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you for having me.
I suppose our first question is, I'm going to ask why, I know you're a really busy woman and you've got a young family, why are you throwing your hat in the ring for council, for a seat on council in our upcoming election?
I think it's really important for young people, especially women, to get involved in the community one way or another. I'm interested in politics, so this is, I think, something that I can contribute to the community. I care about the Soo, and I want to see it go in the right direction, and I want to stay in the Soo, keep my children here. I want this to be a good place for them to grow up. So I really want to do my part to move the Soo in the direction that I think it needs to go.
So what are some of the issues then that you see currently in the city that you'd like to change or have a positive impact on?
So there are definitely quite a few. I mean, I don't think that the Soo's in terrible shape, but I think that it definitely has a fair amount of room to grow. So one that is really important to me personally, at a personal level and in terms of for my kids' futures, and that I've heard about a lot, is the job situation in the Soo.
The lack of jobs.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, not even necessarily lack of jobs, but lack of variety of jobs. Because if you're content working in customer service or fast food, then sure, there are plenty of jobs here for you. And if that's what you're happy with, then absolutely, you're good to go here. But there are other people like myself who want to get into something like, say, communications or, you know, the knowledge sector, that there's very little here. And the few jobs that are here are really competitive and difficult to get. So what I would like to see the city doing is really pushing to get those jobs here. And that's something that I really would focus on if I made it onto council.
Okay, so pushing to get jobs in what way? What would they need to do to obtain more quality positions here?
So the Soo right now is doing a really good job of, you know, we've got the Innovation Center, which is pushing to bring technology jobs to the Soo. And within the Innovation Center, we've got UP, which is pushing to bring the lottery and gaming sector here. And we've got, you know, the Millworks Center for Entrepreneurship that's doing really great things to get entrepreneurs going here in the Soo. But I think that we need to broaden our focus. So I think that the city, whether it's the EDC or, you know, city councilors themselves or city staff, or if we, you know, set up a whole new division maybe within the Innovation Center or the EDC, focusing on attracting those businesses. So, I mean, something like, you know, marketing communications jobs or nonprofits.
So not just the tech jobs.
Exactly.
And not just entrepreneurship.
Exactly. We need to expand our focus, incentivize bringing those jobs here, really, you know, give them the Amazon pitch. We sent off a pitch to Amazon that had a really strong case for why the Soo is a good place to do business. So let's use that, bring it to other businesses. You know, I've spoken to people in nonprofits and stuff based out of Toronto, and they've said there's no reason that what we do couldn't be done in the Soo. We just need to be pitched that, you know, we should bring it to the Soo and make
Plus, we have a quality of life here that doesn't exist in a larger center.
Exactly, and that was part of the Amazon pitch, right? That, you know, the Soo has, you know, all these great qualities. It's got, you know, we're right at the border, so it's a great hub for that. You know, we just need to really put that out there and make sure businesses know about it. And I think that the city's doing a good job of doing that within specific sectors, but I think we need to broaden the focus because those are the people that are leaving, right? Are the people like me who want jobs in communications, you know, in a nonprofit, for example, that they need to leave to get those jobs because there's two that come open in the Soo every year. And so...
And we want the kids to stay, or at least come back for good quality jobs.
Exactly. There's a widespread recognition that we have a youth out-migration problem in the Soo, so this is how we'll get them to stay or come back.
Okay, we need to go to break, and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Katherine G. McCleary. You're watching Perspective. My guest today is Sara McCleary, and she's Ward 4 candidate for Sault Ste. Marie. Before the break, we were talking about jobs and the concern for youth and your children. Obviously, they're young now, but kids grow up pretty fast. What is the issues in Sault Ste. Marie for youth and young people?
So there are definitely, I think, a lot of things that could be addressed in the Soo in terms of the youth. One thing that I've come to realize that we really need, and that there are some groups pushing for, is a youth center. I think that it would go a long way towards helping with a lot of the issues that we're seeing in the Soo. So in terms of youth getting into drugs and everything, I'm not going to say it would immediately fix the problem by any stretch of the imagination, but we need to give youth an opportunity to find something to do. I mean, a lot of youth, they don't want to sit at home. They don't want to go to their friends' houses. So what do? They just walk around town. That's what I did when I was younger, right? We just walked or drove around town. And sometimes that turns into things like graffiti or drug use or, crime, what have you. So I think that having something like a youth center in town would give those youth who want that outlet, it would give them an outlet, somewhere to go, somewhere to be entertained with some degree of supervision so that, you're not worrying about what your kids are doing.
So what would go on, Sara, at this youth center if there were one built here?
So basically what I envision is, there are two different possibilities that I think would work really well here. One is a lot simpler, and I know it's worked in other cities, basically like a traveling youth center. So, say Monday evenings, Superior Heights, their gym is open. Tuesday evenings, Cora, their library is open and they have some programs there. Something like that where it travels and, you just need a volunteer every night to monitor, and then the youth have somewhere to go and something to do. Or alternately, if we could get a location, an actual proper youth center going, having a free space to just hang out with your friends, but also internet access, a gym area for physical activity, kitchen to, do some cooking and get those skills. It needs to be a broader, it can't be a hyper-focused, this is where you can sit and use the internet, right? It needs to be something that youth want. And I think
varied programming for them.
Exactly, if that's what they want.
Geared to their own interests.
Exactly. I think an important part of it is speaking to the youth and finding out what they want, getting their input. It can't just be a group of counselors that are, in their 40s or 50s deciding, this is what youth need. It needs to be
so they can help develop their own programming.
Exactly.
Basically then.
Exactly. There needs to be consultation there. Find out what they want, what they need, and how we can give it to them.
I think that's a great idea, and I like the idea of moving around in the interim until such time that there is a full facility for them to go to.
I think it's fantastic.
And like young people definitely need to, they don't want to sit at home with their parents every night. I know I didn't, and I'm sure it was up to no good, But I think that is a major issue I hear from young people as well. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to do.
Exactly.
Like, not everyone's a skateboarder to go to the skateboard park, so.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not going to, like I said, I won't pretend that it'll immediately fix any kind of problems. There will still be youth getting into drugs or whatnot, and that won't be what a lot of youth want or where they would want to go. But I think we need to have that option available.
Absolutely. We need to go to break, and we'll be right back. You're watching Perspective. Please stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Katherine G. McCleary. You're watching Perspective with Sara McCleary, Ward 4 candidate for Sault Ste. Marie. Before the break, Sara, we were talking about your fantastic ideas for a youth center and even a rotating youth center until such time as maybe a full-time facility is acquired. What about Jamestown? I know there's a lot of issues in Jamestown, and a lot of that's tied to the youth as well. What ideas do you have around Jamestown?
So basically, I live in Jamestown. I have for 6 years now. I think that Jamestown has been ignored for too long by the city generally. So I think that
Ignored in what way? What do you mean?
overall, I mean, how much has really gone into Jamestown to, repair roads or address any kind of issues? I mean, we just recently saw that, council passed the motion to enforce property standards in Jamestown, but that's ultimately not going to address any kind of issue with, drug use or any, those kinds of poverty issues in Jamestown. So I think what needs to happen is that the city really needs to recognize that if they want to address the drug issue in town, we do need to focus on broader issues like poverty that we do see in Jamestown. I mean, I'm not saying everybody in Jamestown is poor. I mean, I myself live there. I know there are plenty of, older retired people who've lived there for 50 years.
So you see a connection with poverty and the drug opioid crisis.
Exactly. I mean, there are societal issues at play. Poverty doesn't cause drug use, but poverty causes these other societal issues that do lead to drug use. So, issues like depression, inability to access healthcare, things like that. So the city really needs to invest in addressing those issues within Jamestown. And also just even from a purely aesthetic point of view, it could be revitalized. I mean, the neighborhood could be fantastic. I actually enjoy the neighborhood for the most part. I mean, there's a corner store just down the street. There's a park just down the street from me. And there's this beautiful little courtyard in Jamestown, right, where the soup kitchen is. That could be perfect. You could get so many little restaurants in there, little stores.
I've actually wondered myself why that is vacant and nothing in there.
Exactly.
It's kind of a neat little spot,
Exactly.
actually.
I walk through there almost every day taking my kids to the little park nearby. And it could be such a great little courtyard with like a little market. The city just really needs to incentivize investing in Jamestown. And, a part of that is doing things like fixing up the roads and making sure that streetlights are on. The streetlight across from my house doesn't come on every night. I'm sorry, it's Jamestown. I want the streetlight across from my house on every night when I'm getting from my car into my house. So, I mean, just simple things like that. And, I mean, even we have the Neighborhood Resource Center on Gore Street, which is quite close, but, I mean, get another one going in Jamestown. We have a few across town. Get one in Jamestown. If there's a widespread recognition that there are issues in Jamestown, then something needs to be done. Because if you just keep saying, oh, Jamestown's full of poor people, full of drug users. So you just feel like
Jamestown's been abandoned and forgotten about.
Exactly, and that's exactly how the people who live there feel. So if you just keep saying that the neighborhood is full of drug users and poor people and it's just this terrible spot, like stain on the city, the people who live there are just going to internalize that and they're just going to keep perpetuating it and it's going to become true. So we need to...
It's like the broken windows theory. If you don't clean it up and there's lots of litter and broken windows, it just contributes to more litter and more broken windows.
Exactly, yeah. So we need to address that, and I think that we need people on council who will do that work.
Okay, we need to go to break, and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. You're watching Perspective. Welcome back. I'm Katherine G. McCrae. You're watching Perspective with my guest today, Sara McCleary, Ward 4 candidate, Sault Ste. Marie. Sara, what can the city do infrastructure-wise in Sault Ste. Marie to make it a healthy community for everyone?
So I think an important part of making the city healthier is making sure that everybody has easy access to the things they need. So I know there's been a lot of uproar about the transit lately. We just recently saw a shift in the transit routes, but I'm still hearing that they're not helpful. That it was actually a step back is what I've been hearing. So I mean, making it easier, things like getting transit in place that can actually allow people to get to the places that they need. So easy access to grocery stores, incentivizing and encouraging investment in certain areas to make sure that every neighborhood has access to what they need. Libraries. We've got the one library downtown, and then now we have the one in the West End, none in the East End. We've never had one up on the hill. I think that that's an important part of making
I miss
sure.
my Churchill library.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm sure you're not the only one, right? That now you have to drive all the way across town. How many people used to take the bus or walk and now just aren't going to the library? So I mean, I understand these are things that cost money, but it's an important part of getting the city healthy. And same with, access to, food. I know I mentioned grocery stores, but also, I've done some interviews with people who are helping with educational gardening and everything, and there's great people working on that front. So bringing those on board with the city. I know we've got the United Way program going right now as well. But again, getting that moving quicker so that everybody has access and they don't have to be on a bus for 2 hours.
So maybe more local gardening
Exactly.
programs?
Exactly. I mean, localizing things, making sure that everybody has access and they don't have to travel for an hour and a half on the bus. So that I think a really important part of a healthy city is its walking score. Is you can go to websites and they have walking scores. Ours is not very good. I mean, I'm lucky in that I'm downtown, so yes, I can walk to the mall, I can walk to the mill market, I can walk to the library, but I'm one of relatively few people who can actually do that I can walk to a grocery store and a library and everything I need if I don't have access to a car. There are people, especially, far West End, that they don't have access to that, or East End, they don't, far East End don't have access to that. And so...
Not even the Far East. My neighborhood is not really walking accessible to
Exactly.
stores. So
Exactly.
that's my excuse anyway.
But I mean, when I think about somebody like my mom, that, she doesn't drive. If she has to, take a taxi somewhere, that's going to cost her $20 in taxis,
absolutely.
and she's a senior, so how is she going to afford that? So if I moved out of town, she wouldn't be able to get to these stores. It's just, there are too many people who are in that exact situation. And I think that the city needs to do something to address that. I know that we do have some great planners on the planning team. I know the one that I'm thinking of actually just recently left, but she was really promoting that, the whole walkability of the Soo. And that's what we need to be looking at, are these kinds of things. We can't just focus. I understand budget's important. I understand we can't just spend and run up a crazy deficit. But you have to invest in your community to get it to a place in the future where it needs to be.
And you have to listen to the residents and what their needs are and what they want.
Exactly. If you don't have happy, healthy people, then businesses won't want to invest here. If businesses don't want to invest here, then they're going to leave. We're going to have more youth out migration, and the city's just going to shrink and eventually become a ghost town. And that's not what anybody wants, especially myself. I want my kids to grow up here. I want them to be happy here and healthy.
Absolutely. We need to go to another break, and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Katherine G. McCrae. You're watching Perspective with my guest, Sara McCleary, Ward 4 candidate, Sault Ste. Marie Municipal Council. Sara, why is it important? I know you're a strong advocate for youth in the community and for younger people, maybe that aren't considered youth anymore, like yourself, but you're considerably younger than I am. Why is your feeling so strong that there needs to be more younger people on council?
Right now, I think our average age on council is something like 55 years old. And so it at least certainly seems as though when you get older people involved in politics, their focus is 4 years from now. Will I get elected in 4 years again? Is what I'm doing right now going to get me reelected? Whereas young people who want to stay in the Soo, who have young families and are thinking about their children and their future, our focus is on the future. When I'm doing this, I'm thinking about what's going to help the Soo down the road. What's going to help the Soo 10 years from now when my kids are in high school, 20 years from now when they're thinking about starting their own families. I'm not worried about the getting elected again part of it. I don't care if people end up not liking me as long as I've done my part to help the Soo, and I think that it's going in the direction that it needs to go to become stronger. And I think that's a really important distinction, that we can't focus on 4 years from now. We have to look long term. So I think that it's important to get people who have that focus, whether it's for themselves or for their kids, that are thinking in those
So
terms.
you think the longer term vision has been missing for the most part?
Absolutely. It definitely, I mean, some of what we've seen come out of council in the last, say, 10 years or so has not been long-term focus. I mean, even something as simple as the splash pad, that it was really controversial whether it would go on into Bellevue Park or Clerks Park. And ultimately council went with Bellevue Park, which I think was a complete misstep if they want to get downtown up and booming again. So, I mean, they were thinking short-term convenience versus long-term, what will benefit the city, and, you know, what are our goals for the city long-term, which is great now that we have the future SSM, you know, that report, and those goals guiding the direction of the city, but we need to make sure that they're followed in terms of council and its decisions.
And what about the business core downtown? What's your vision for that?
I would love to see a booming downtown. I mean, I lived in Kingston for a year when I did my master's, and the downtown, you just drove downtown and it's, you know, there are flowers everywhere. There aren't empty shops all over the place. I mean, maybe there are now. It was a few years ago. And same with, you know, when I go to Toronto. Obviously, we're not Toronto by any stretch of the imagination, but it's the same thing. You don't see empty stores, you know, 3 stores in a row before you finally find a full one.
And why are there so many empty stores here?
I think a lot of it is that the city needs to incentivize it. They need to, whether it's, you know, lowering taxes or, you know, giving, you know, making loans easier to access to start the businesses. There are a ton of things that could be done, but it really just comes down to making it beneficial and making it attractive to invest in the downtown. So I think part of making it attractive is the city doing its part, whether it's, you know, making Clerks Park a location where people want to go. I mean, you've got the library right there, the art gallery, and then this big empty field that doesn't really have anything. Yes, it's nice. I like to go there for picnics, but other than that, why am I going to take my kids there, right? So it needs to be things like that where you're investing in what you can invest in, and then that will draw other people to invest in the businesses.
Right. So if they would have put the splash pad in Clerk Park, plus Rotary is set up down there as well, it kind of would have been a good fit.
Exactly.
Or maybe there's opportunity for a second
I know there's
splash
been talk
pad
of that, but I mean, had a hard time raising money for the first. But absolutely, I mean, that's another thing that I love about when I go visit my family in Toronto. It doesn't matter where you are, you're within walking distance to a park, to a splash pad, to a dog park. I mean, obviously we can't do all of what Toronto can do, but we also need to think about what can we do to be more like these booming cities. You know,
how about
where can we
a
invest?
dog park downtown or in the West
Exactly,
End? I
that
mean,
would
on
be-
the second line, it's a little far for people to get to,
Exactly.
especially if they don't have a vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. So that was another thing that I would love to see is, you know, West End, if you don't want dogs to be off leash, get another dog park going. I mean, that one we could easily raise money for. I think there are plenty of animal lovers who would, you know, be willing to donate towards getting another one going. So something as simple as that you show that you care about the community, that you want to invest in the people who live here and what they want and what they need. And that will encourage, you know, like I said, healthy, happy people, and then businesses, and then the city goes in the direction it needs to go.
So you've got a lot of ideas and plans, and you're passionate about moving Sault Ste. Marie forward as a healthy, happy city for all.
Exactly.
Sara, I want to thank you for being on the show today. If you have an imparting thought that you'd like to leave with our audience just before we end, what would that be?
Really just that it's really time that the city makes some changes. We need to get some young blood on council. I don't have beefs with all of the, you know, everybody on council. Some of them have done what I'm sure they at least think is best for the Sioux, but we really need young blood. We need to go in a new direction. We need a different focus. Like I said, we need people who are looking long-term future from a personal perspective. This is my future and my kids' future, not will this get me reelected in 4 years.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Sara McCleary, Ward 4 candidate for Sault Ste. Marie. Thank you for watching. Till next time, what's your perspective?